Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank, and you're watching NLL Lacrosse Talk all across the Spanglish World Network. And if you want to check out any of the other shows that I do, you can check them out on Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. All right. Listen, this has been a really great day out here. I don't know what it's like for you guys, but man, the snow's coming down. So, first, let me ask the most important question. Our guest is Valerie.
Rachel Vallarelli.
Vallarelli. I want to say I have a family member whose name is Vaccarelli. So and I want to say Vaccarelli, so I apologize, Vallarelli.
Yeah.
So I have an
It's
Italian.
okay. Us Italians have way too
Uh,
long last names. You're fine. You're good. Blame my
and
father.
yeah, blame my father too, and my mother, and my grandfather, and my grandmother, everybody. All right. So how does an Italian play lacrosse? How do you end up involved in lacrosse? Seriously.
So uh, my aunt's best friend from work, her son played, and I was like, oh, super competitive. I was like, I want to give that a try, and so I started. I was like, I'll go out for the lacrosse team. That was in seventh grade for me, so a little while ago, obviously, and I played softball before then, but everybody was going out for the softball team in my class, and I was like, okay, there's 35 people on that roster. Am I really going to see time? And basketball was my big sport too, so there was things that I was missing. And lacrosse didn't care. They just wanted people to sign up, come play, and they didn't mind if I had to leave early or miss a few things. And so, those two things coupled together, I was like, I'll go out for lacrosse. Let's give it a try. Definitely not track and field or anything like that. I'm not a runner in any way, shape, or form. And that's how lacrosse started. I couldn't catch or throw when I first played to save my life. We were doing shuttles, line drills, whatever you want to call them, same difference. And I couldn't catch and throw at all. And I thought it was maybe 5-10 minutes. It was probably around 30 seconds. And I went up to my coach and I was like, I cannot catch with this thing. Is there something bigger? Did they make something bigger? Did I buy the wrong item? And they're like, well, you could be the goalie. And I was like, is the stick bigger? And they're like, yes. And I was like, great, sign me up. And I was like, I was a soccer goalie. I was like, this is a great fit. And one of the other coach was like hitting the other one and was like, it's totally different. Was like, shush, we have a victim. Like, let it go. We have a volunteer, and let's just see how it rolls. And the first time I played, it's funny. I look back, like my dad took pictures of everything, and I'm so lucky that I have all that stuff like going through. And they gave me a hockey skater's helmet, not a mask, just like a regular one, regular cage, a little plastic piece that was like square that went across. So definitely like Dallas Elliott style throat guard there, and I had shoulder pads, not even a chest guard, shoulder pads, elbow pads. What else did I have? And I had a plastic goalie stick with leather strings in it.
Now, where was all this happening? Where was this?
So I went to school, the Holy Child in Rye, New York, for middle school through high school. So I was what they call a lifer. And that's where I picked up lacrosse. My mom and my aunt went there, so I wanted to follow in their footsteps. They didn't play lacrosse though, but yeah, that's how it started.
There are a couple of good hockey players from Rye, New York.
Yeah,
It's a pretty sporty kind of neighborhood, and that's the biggest thing we find out with lacrosse is that the communities that lacrosse players come out of are usually hotbeds of lacrosse. In other words, lacrosse isn't something that goes from east to west and everything in between, right? There's hot spots. How would you define the hot spot that you grew up in?
not really one at all. I'm the only person from Hartsdale that plays lacrosse. So Holy Child was a private school, so I didn't go to the public school in my area. And I mean, if I did, they didn't have lacrosse, so I guess we wouldn't be talking, right? But so Holy Child was, it. But I'm from Hartsdale, and yeah, the only person that plays. We don't have a youth lacrosse program. We don't have any of that. And my mom found the club team by happenstance that I played on. It's no longer around, but because one of the girls that I played AAU basketball with was at Holy Child, and they were practicing there. And my mom's like, well, she likes lacrosse. She wants to get more involved. this is a good outlet. Like, we'll go into it. And, my mom is the queen of asking questions and finding out information. And so she found all the info, and then, that ship kind of, sailed, I guess, in a good way. Right. So.
Absolutely. I mean, it's obvious if your mother was informed about it, she was being very unselfish, because if I'm a parent, the first thing I think about is, how long do I have to drive till I get to practice? Where do they play? And all those things, and the answers your mother must have got. You have a really wonderful mother. I mean, it could have been easy for her to say, this might be a little too much. This is too different.
It was better than AAU basketball. I mean, AAU the practice was 45 minutes away 3 times a week. And then games were every weekend for months at different places all around. And I just remember doing homework in the car. My mom would leave work early, all this kind of stuff for AAU. So lacrosse, having practice 2 days a week, 20 minutes away. Obviously, with box lacrosse, I don't have that luxury. But with field, I did, at least growing up. So it was a lot easier.
All right. Before I give it to Gary, the last question I want to ask you is, when you began this, did you realize how much of a lifelong experience it would be?
No. And I think that's what's so cool about sports, right? You don't know where it's going to take you in any capacity. I mean, when I was growing up, I thought I'd be the starting center at UConn for Coach Gino Oriyama. I thought that I'd be a first-round draft pick and play for the New York Liberty, because they were my favorite women's basketball team professionally, and they still are. And I stopped growing at 5'4" 3/4 of an inch, even though my AAU basketball team still had me as a starting center. And I was like, I'm going to play in college. I'm going to go to UConn. And just no. So I didn't know that lacrosse would be an opportunity or a potential. And I can tell you, my senior year in college, for sure, I thought everything would be done for me after that, because there was no women's pro league. And even though I played some men's, I just, had a feeling, like men's field, I was like, they're not going to want me to try to go for the NLL or anything like that. So I thought I was pretty much done playing lacrosse my senior year in college. And then the women's pro stuff started. And then a few years after that, box playing wise came into my life, which was really awesome. So yeah, then I guess, I don't know, the rest is history, or I don't know, whatever silly weird phrase you want to use, right?
Let's just say that these are the early chapters you've done and you're in right now. There's still a lot of chapters to write. And I'm sure Gary's got some questions about each and every chapter.
I want to go back to the beginning. I want to go back to just as that you found being a goalie. And how do you learn to be a goalie? Like there can't, like now there's a lot more. There are people like you to show people angles, to show people stretches, drills, everything else. Back then, they gave you a stick, they gave you some equipment. Here you go.
Pretty much. I mean, they told me to try to get to the ball, obviously, because then if I didn't, it would go up on the scoreboard. So, and then, that's how addition works, right? So it was pretty cut and dry. Rachel, try to get there. And I can tell you, when you're first starting out and you don't have a ton of instruction, and look, people tried, right? I think it is so hard, and, you never know. I think coaching wise, right, it's gotten so amazing where people can coach more full time and stuff like that. But, it was kind of like, Russian roulette. You didn't know what was going to happen with your coaches, who you were going to have. And they tried, and, they were like, Rachel, well, we try to step to the ball. They would try to walk me through things. But I mean, you're essentially like a baby elephant on skates. You have no idea. And you try, and they're like, oh, they're cradling like this. Do I move every single time the stick goes in front of their face, or do you just stand there? So learning that patience and stuff is super hard. Right. When I first started playing too, I didn't wear contacts. I had glasses. And so it was even harder for shots that were outside of where my glasses, like the frames, what they would show. So you add all that kind of stuff up, and it's funny. But at some point, it just kind of clicks. And I know that seems so weird to say, but looking back, it's like you just kind of have these like little moments that you remember, and it's like, oh, it clicked. That makes sense. So when I started getting lessons a lot of it was men's field players to start that really took a liking to my like attitude in a good way, right? Like that my competitiveness and my competitive nature of like, I want to stop the ball. I want to be really fast. I want to be the best, but I see the top of the staircase and I don't know how to take that first step. Help me with that first step. And so they would do that. And they were amazing at it and really just making sure that I was set up for success. And then in high school, I had a goalie coach. She's actually still in the NCAA record books and she played at Quinnipiac and she was really somebody that jump-started my career and really helped me out. And she was my club coach and was a really awesome mentor for me. So having that, like, and just people that, you know, some people like only find people that are goalies and know the position, played it to work with your son, daughter, right, et cetera. And I'm kind of in the camp where, you know what, if you find somebody that really cares and really knows and is willing to learn and take that different perspective that they bring to the table to help you out, I think that works wonders too. And I had that in college as well, with my assistant coaches my freshman year at UMass, which was really awesome. So
it must be tough as a goaltender, a first time goaltender. I think the toughest lesson to learn is you move a lot less than you think you should.
Yeah.
That's
well,
the one.
I move more in field than I do in box. So now I'm in the in between of playing both right now. So I'm playing men's and women's field as a goalie, and I'm still playing men's box, obviously. And the first weekend a few weeks ago, I was just kind of standing there. I was like, I can move. And I'm just wearing, chest guard, gloves, helmet. And I'm like, I feel like I'm forgetting things. And, a bunch of the guys that I play box with, for the Dead Rabbits, and I play field with them too, are like, Rachel, you look so small. And I was like, I think it's a compliment, but they're like, look at how tiny you are. And I was like, oh, great. But yeah, it's all relative, right? So it's nice. I'm like, I can jog around a little bit in field, and then I'm like, okay, I'm good. And box, I'm just like, I'm just going to stand here and wiggle, essentially.
Right. Well, college, you needed to learn more of the mobility thing, didn't you?
Yeah, for sure.
It was also a mental toughness, right? If something goes in, you have to be able to be like an Etch-a-Sketch and just shake it off and, get forward. Otherwise, there's going to be a whole lot more coming back.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, my experience with club lacrosse when I was in high school, I was pretty much the only goalie for a ton of different age groups, and definitely very illegal now. But, I would play when I was a freshman, I'd play with seniors, and I'd go under my mom's maiden name because you had to register. So, and my mom would get recruiting emails and stuff. It was so funny. But, I would play 10 to 12 games a day. Sometimes there was a golf cart dropping me off in the middle of a game because we didn't have a goalie. Game ended, and then I got carted. They dropped me in the crease, and then they dropped my bag on the sideline. And playing all those games in a row, whether it went good, bad, indifferent, and I'm very hard on myself. So I always believed that I should have a shutout or, a few goals against. And I was like, that's a win. And anything more than that, I'm like, that's terrible. But it taught me to kind of, in a way, get over it and work through it, because I was like, well, here's this game. Now I have to reset for another game, and I have 30 seconds to do it while the golf cart drops me off. So I was like, this is my quick reset. And it taught me that mental toughness. And, and my freshman year, especially in college too, and all throughout UMass, I mean, you're practicing for 3.5, 4 hours a day. You have school, you have all those other things that are going on, and you love your teammates and you love all the other goalies with you. But at the same time, my competitive nature is I want to be the one on the field, and I'm going to prove that I'm the best, and not in a cocky way, but just like, I want what's best for my teammates. But if I'm pushing myself to do that and be the best, then we're going to win games, and that's going to be a good thing. And if I'm not the number one, and if I'm number two, how am I pushing, healthy pushing, right? The person in front of me to be better, right? So that I can get that spot, but also push them to work harder, be better, et cetera, for the team to win. So,
sure. And it worked, because you were 10th in NCAA history with a 5.77 goals against average, second in UMass history for goals against average with a 6.7. So obviously all the hard work pays off.
Yeah, my junior and senior year were statistically the best ones. at UMass. My sophomore year, I struggled a little bit. And then, freshman year, I did really well too. And we had a goalie that was a senior. She started every game of her career. And, I would go in a lot of games. So I'm super grateful for that experience. And I had, great teammates and great coaches that pushed me to, to be better. And I had different experiences each year, but all summed up to be pretty solid. So, and I think team wise too, like I tell people, I love the, the personal accolades, right? I think it's great. I always strive to be the best that I can be for other people. But at the end of the day, I'd trade it all in if I could have won a national championship in college. I'm not going to lie, hands down would have traded it all. So we were, close. NCAA's all 4 years, which was awesome. Won conference all 4 years at UMass. We were undefeated in conference too. And it was just, it was crazy, but we played well. We played tough teams. I mean, especially towards NCAA's and stuff like that. And, but yeah, I'd trade it all in for a national championship, hands down.
We even neglected the U.S. team before college. So we had that on the resume as well. So it's a pretty good lineage of learning the craft.
Yeah. Being a part of the US U19 national team, I think it's too wordy, but I've gotten used to saying it over the years. It was an awesome experience. And then I've been a part of the Team USA system since then. So I had a crack at tryouts for 4 or 5 years. And, still trying to keep that door open through other possibilities and everything like that. So best things I say that happened in my career were when I put on my UMass uniform and when I put on my US one. And obviously, professionally for women's and men's as well, is huge. But I think it's, when those two, like college and then obviously, I mean, wearing the US jersey was unbelievable. So
before we leave college, explain to the viewers what college lacrosse is, how it fits in. It's accepted through the colleges a little differently than it is in the regular public, correct?
What do you mean?
Well, it's almost it's much more available in colleges than it is on street corners or in neighborhoods, in regular ordinary neighborhoods. I find that college lacrosse is very popular, and it goes back many, many years. There's a deep history in college lacrosse, university college lacrosse.
Yeah. No, I think it's super cool, and just seeing how people are so tied to their college experience and playing for teams. And, I think for me, I was a college coach for 8 years, and I recently stopped, and I'm like, I can truly enjoy watching the former programs where I coached, and also, especially UMass. And I have that time to like really give back and be more of a present alumni, I guess I should say. But it's a super cool experience, especially, in the US, it's pretty much a year round kind of a thing at the D1 level. So that was a crazy but fun experience of like 20-hour weeks and stuff like that in the fall and the spring, and the conditioning and stuff in the winter. But yeah, it's unbelievable just looking at the history. And UMass women's lacrosse actually won the first ever NCAA women's national championship, which is pretty cool. I wish that we won another one when I was there, but that's okay. If they win in the future, I'll be a happy alumni. What can I say?
Absolutely.
The word I should have used was continuity. My point was that the world of lacrosse in colleges and universities goes back to the 50s. It's not something new. It's more new outside of colleges and universities.
Yeah.
Now, as a Canadian, of course, here's my next question: is you were a field player. How did you get involved in box?
That's a good one. So my 16th birthday, I went to a New York Titans game. That's all I wanted. I wanted to go to a New York Titans game. I wanted to watch Case Powell. And I was like, this is awesome. I want to go. And of course, my mom's like, dear Lord, like there are other 16-year-olds that want these big parties and party buses, and my daughter wants to go to a box lacrosse game. Is this hockey with sneakers, basically? Like, what is this? My mom's going to watch this later and be so mad that I said that, but it's the truth. So I, myself and a bunch of friends in my family, we went to the New York Titans game, and I loved it. And after that, I was like, I want to play. That's so cool. And unfortunately, there weren't really many options, even for boys at that time, in the early 2000s, to have the opportunity to play box lacrosse, by me, in Westchester County, New York. So the options were up in Canada, and my mom, again, queen of research and finding things out. There weren't options, and she's like, I'm not driving to Canada. So she's like, sorry. And looking, fast forward, right? And it's like I would do those drives to Toronto and everything on my own, and she's cracking up at it. But it's crazy to look at, and that's how I fell in love with it. And I had to put that love on pause because there weren't options, and so it was by the wayside. And I think how I found box in general is either Inside Lacrosse or US Lacrosse, now USA Lacrosse, did an article on Ginny Cappuccioni. And I thought it was so cool. I was like, there is this woman kicking ass and taking names, and this is so amazing. And she's like around my height and all this kind of stuff. I was looking at all that info, and I was like, this is so cool. And she plays pro. And I just thought that was amazing. And they talked about her, and then it kind of ended. I went to the New York Titans game. Everything kind of got put on pause. And then I was coaching out in California at Fresno State. That program's no longer around, unfortunately. But the assistant coach, Bryce Queener, was like, we had a Canadian on the team from Mission. And we were like, oh, we need to be able to help our team finish better. It would be so cool if we ordered box lacrosse gear, and especially like goalie gear. And he was like, this will be good. Like, he's like, I'm not hopping in there, right? Because the head coach was like, oh, why don't you hop in? And then was like, oh, no, you know what? Rachel would be let's just stick Rachel in there. And I was like, okay. And this was like, Dallas would have been so happy with the gear because it was so tight on me. It was unbelievable. And I was terrible the first time I played. It was horrific. And, the Canadian we had on the team, Dawson, she was trying to show me how to play. Mm-hmm. And she was like, no, you got to like just wiggle about in there. So that now that's kind of like my go-to statement is like, you just kind of have to like wiggle. So I left that job, drove cross country back home, and I was like, I want to play. This is awesome. And so of course, the normal person would find a league, then order gear and go from there. And I ordered gear from Canada, rush delivered it, and then Googled box lacrosse leagues near me. And the nearest one was in Boston, Massachusetts. And that's 3.5 hours for me. And I was like, well, that's close. and my mom's like, that's not close at all, honey. And I was like, no, this is close. And so I emailed, and Chuck Jaffe got back to me, and he runs the Boston Box League. And he was like, hey, we have tryouts for US U20, and you should come and work with Ginny Cappuccioni. And then, of course, I literally lost it. I was like, okay, this is great. Yeah. This is so cool.
That's worth it right itself, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, Chuck, you do know I'm 25, right? He's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I just want you to come work with Ginny, and then we'll see. Like, it's not for US, but you train with those people, and then, see if you're, basically if I could hack it in the Boston Box League. And Ginny working with me the first times, like I put the gear on. I was kind of struggling with it because it came the day before, and I shoved it into the giant bag that was ordered that could probably fit like 6 bodies. FBI, don't come after me for that statement. And I just stared at it. And then I was like trying to put it on. She's like, have you ever put this on before? And I was like, no, it came yesterday. And she was like, Rachel, what? And so we sat there, she squirted water all over it. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, it's going to mold to you. And I was like, okay, that's gross. She's like, you're going to be sweating in it like soon enough. Don't worry about it. Put it on. Then like I'm getting a dad is helping some like little kid's dad, basically, because younger goalie dressed me in the jersey. Cause Ginny's like, I'm done with like this babysitting. And she had to duct tape my arms though, because the gear didn't fit. The bottoms, like the larges, of course, it's the smallest Cat 3s that they make, right, were past my fingertips. And so she's like, come. She shoved it all the way up. And then she just got a roll of duct tape and was duct taping away. My hands were so fat after this. It was unreal. But at least the gear was on me. And I played, and she was like, make sure you keep drinking water. I don't need you to drop dead on me. And I was like, what is this sport? And I was like, okay, they didn't put any of this in that article that I read about her. And I was like, she's just like absolute badass in the best way possible, and really like super supportive with me. I was like, I want to do a combine, and she's like, why? They will eat you alive. You got to go in with like, you've got to be better than. You can't just be good enough.
Mhm.
And she's like, because there'll be somebody that's taller, there'll be this, there'll be that, somebody knows somebody longer. She's like, you got to be better than, and you can't have a bad day ever. And that's like the PG version of the conversation, but yeah, but it was really eye-opening. And she's like, you can just keep pushing. And I was like, okay. So that's kind of how the box stuff started. And then, I drove up to Hingham, Massachusetts every Tuesday for the games, and I'd get home at like 2:30 or 3:30, like between 2:30 and 3:30 in the morning. And I did that for years, in the summer, in the winter, everything. The guys are like, where are you staying? And I was like, my car, as I drive back to New York. And they're like, wait, so you drive up in a day, play, and then drive back? And I was like, that is correct. Yep. So I have a few screws loose. It's okay.
Let me take an opportunity to remind people who we're talking to. We're talking to Rachel Vallarelli, and you're watching NLL Lacrosse Talk. So far, if you've just joined us, you've missed how she got involved in lacrosse. You've missed a little bit of her college experience. And for all the rest of the surprise questions, we'll continue with Gary Groob. Gary, get after it.
Well, yeah, you guys, Ginny and yourself, not only broke the gender barrier, you guys smashed the gender barrier, which is about time, because we've had that same problem up here with hockey forever. And now, thank God, that stereotype is gone, and you're able to play men's and women's simultaneously, because I knew a lot of girls growing up that were great athletes and couldn't play anywhere because there just weren't enough enrollments. So, cutting edge as a warrior, that's fantastic.
And I think going off that too, it's awesome, what Ginny did. And I think, people have asked me before, and they're like, Rachel, like, you're the first to do it. And I was like, I'm not. Right. And I was like, I'm the first because it's been 20 years since Ginny played. So there weren't really combines back then, and there wasn't the US Elite one, and there wasn't the PBLA, right? All these things didn't exist when Ginny played. So yes, I'm the first because, well, it wasn't around 20 years ago, which is so crazy that that's the last time that she played professionally.
Right.
And I look at that, and people are like, you're the first. And I was like, I'm not. And I'm okay with that. Right. I just think it's sad that there's been a 20-year gap between herself and me, and those are the kinds of things I look at, like, how can we make that change? And just seeing it too, men, women, right? Anybody really would come up to me and be like, I can, because you can, Rachel. And I believe I can do whatever it is. It could be like, I can get an A on an assignment because if you can go and play with guys and show them, like what's up, then I can go and I can do this, and I can do these things, or I can play lacrosse at this level. And and they're like, you're the first. And I was like, I'm not. And I was like, I'm happy that you can, and you feel that you can, because I do. And I was like, I can because Ginny did.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing, like, I give credit where credit's due. Like, she broke that barrier. And, I look at how people supported her when she went through it too. And I think that that's awesome, and it's like, there's always going to be people that say, oh, it's media, oh, it's this. And I think that's one of the hardest things is, sometimes, and I kind of like let it brush off my shoulder, really. But
bypass that stuff, because there's always going to be somebody out there trying to knock it down because they can't understand it or do it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm like, you know what? People are going to say what they want to say, whether I was doing it or not, right? People can like me, not like me, say things about me. At the end of the day, it's like, I can just control what I can control. I can't control their narrative. And it's like, sometimes guys that I play with or against, not really recently, but in the past, especially when I, like, year 1 into 2, when I first started playing, there were places that I couldn't play. And they were like, I'd literally fully have all my stuff on, step on the floor, and they're like, get out. And I was like, what do you mean get out? And they're like, leave. Like, we don't want you here. And I played the previous time there too. And then they were like, you need to leave. And it didn't have anything to do with the history of the game or anything of that nature. It wasn't on the reservation. It was just a random spot, and I was like, that is an issue for me. And one of my friends was like, I just would have stepped on the floor. You wasted my time. And I was like, you know what? It's not, I was like, at that point, it's not worth my time. I'm going to go where I'm wanted. But at that point too, I just kind of realized that if people are that upset, and it's causing them to make comments either to my face or behind my back where I can still hear it or try to get a rise out of me, I take it as a sign that I'm doing good because I'm bothering somebody that much that I'm here.
Absolutely.
And I wish that it wasn't that way. But it just is. And, you know, I think to a lot of the people, right? Like, and Reggie Thorpe was great with this when I was invited to the invite only tryouts for the Riptide, or I don't know, it's too wordy, but, you know, I was like, I don't want to upset the guys. I don't want to come in here, be like, I don't want it to be this media thing. Like, I get it's a big deal, but I just want it to be about my play and, you know, who I am, and the other stuff is secondary. Right. And he was like, I don't care if you're a Smurf, if you're like, he's like, I don't care, right? Girl, guy, this, that, don't care. He's like, can you stop the ball? Yes or no? Are you the person for the job? Yes or no? Right. And Absolutely. he's like, the other stuff doesn't matter. And he's like, and it's actually, he's like, the goalie position is a little bit easier to kind of figure that kind of stuff out than some other ones. And, you know, I didn't get past that initial tryout, but you know, I did turn some heads in a good way being there, and they're like with my play, not just because I was the only chick there. But I look at that kind of stuff, and you know, that's a lot of the guys I play with and coaches. You know, it's a joke now with like the chowder heads. The first weekend, they're like, fellas and my lady, and I was like, you don't need to go out of your way to, you know, like give me a separate intro, whatever. And I was like, I know when you say fellas or guys or boys, I was like, I don't identify that way, but I know it's a term of endearment that I'm a part of the group. And so for me, I'm like, that's fine. You know, and I was like, I don't need you to like second guess, look over your shoulder and be like, oh, wait, I said guys, or I said this. And Rachel's here. I'm like, big deep breath. It's fine. It to me, I'm just like, you think I'm included and I'm one of you. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the stuff that matters.
Yeah. Well, that's the biggest issue with, you know, with women's sports, right? Is that as soon as women get involved in sports, or someone says, okay, check out women's hockey, they're automatically, remember that statement you made earlier that you got to be your best when you show up? Well, unfortunately, sometimes you can't be at your best. You're on your way to being your best. And if you can't let people fail and or, you know, not look as good, at least at first, then there's never going to be progress. That's the reality of it. And I like and salute the people, you know, I think you underlined it perfectly, which is basically you just want to show up and play, and there's no comment about anything other than, so you play goal? Okay. And end of story. But that's the toughest place to get to when it comes to a lot of things in society. So I really do adore your patience. Very proud of your patience, because, you know, being in your position, playing the position that you're playing in, it's all about patience. So I salute you for that. And I'm sorry that you had to go through some really tough times. I'm not taking responsibility for it because it wasn't me, but I do know that acknowledgement of, you know, hard times are good, so that you can put that aside and move forward. And it sounds like you put that aside and moved forward.
Yeah.
It's also, as a coach, you're able to prepare people for it, so that they're not blindsided by it as well. Yeah. I want to take a step backwards a little bit, because we jumped to your New York Riptide thing, but I want to talk about the NLL Combine that you went to. Now, we had a friend of ours that was also in that Combine, and it was kind of on his bucket list, and Aaron tried his darndest, but, you know, he was another goalie. And
he was a goalie, he just wasn't an NLL goalie, that's all.
Right, well, he was already in his 40s.
He was a goalie.
He tried, but, you know, that he said was probably one of the toughest things he'd ever done. Talk about the Combine in itself. It doesn't matter men, women, just everything is being measured. Everything is being watched, that kind of pressure.
Yeah. You know, and I look at that kind of stuff. I think looking back, the pressure that either was self-imposed or a little bit there when I was at UMass or with US or things like that really pushed me to feel ready for it. Right. And I think to a certain point, did I ever do an NLL Combine before? know. So I didn't know what to expect in that front, but I tried to do as much homework as I could and reaching out and asking people that have been through them before so that I wasn't a chicken with its head cut off because,
Right.
Unfortunately, being the only woman there, I didn't want to be the only woman that was there that had Devin Caney coming and filming a day in the life, and they posted the night before. So somebody called me social media, like Instagram girl during it. And I was like, well, I guess. And I was like, God, I'm terrible with social media. Like, I don't, I was like, I don't think I'm social media girl, but I get their point is like, oh, they post a video of a chick before the combine. Okay, cool. Like whatever. So I wanted to make sure that I had all the information so that I didn't go in looking like this person that was put on this, social media, what have you, and being, paraded around.
Right. Sure.
I didn't want to be that person. So I was like, I got to know all the info and kind of figure things out. It was really tough. And I think doing the 2 sessions a day and then the morning the next day and kind of going through it all and doing 2 sessions that next day as well. It was a lot. And I think just being mentally tough and being ready, I kind of have my like pregame and stuff, like all my routines and things that I go through. So just having all of that and being as prepared as I could,
Right.
was huge. But, it was a really cool experience and getting to interact with the GMs and the head coaches within the NLL in a more, like a learning environment, because it was especially like it was the US Elite Combine that first weekend. And then a few days later, I drove out to Toronto. But I mean, guys didn't know which door to go through, and I was holding them and they're like, I can go early. And I was like, no, you cannot. And they're like, why is this chick grabbing me? And all of a sudden the coaches are like, they're grabbing you so that you don't look like an ass. Because I'm about to blow that you have too many men on the floor. And all of a sudden they all turn around and they go, oh, thank you so much. And I was like, yep, that's fine. And so that Instagram girl thing went away after they're like, oh, she's actually legit. She can make saves and she's really, really good. And
eventually
I earned respect.
The conversation too. So you're just a player, which is exactly what you want. You go to the Arena Lacrosse League, and I have an affiliation with them. I do their media. I've been doing it with Paul for a while. So I love that league. I love it as a feeder league. I think it's invaluable what that league is for. You went to Whitby. Talk a little bit about the league itself.
It was a really awesome experience. The drives with my butt getting numb, like 9 hours into the drive when I'm almost there, probably not so much. I remember like around the Syracuse area, 4.5 hours in, I'd stick lacrosse balls under both ass cheeks because my legs started to go numb. So I was like, okay, well, let's try to figure this out. And I just kind of like wiggle about as I drive to like get the feeling to go away because my lower body would just start to spasm.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the league, though, just my travels up there. But it was really awesome.
Children's Arena.
It was an awesome experience to be able to work with guys that were either like drafted into the NLL and then they were on practice squads. I mean, just looking at that as an opportunity to be able to keep guys ready and in shape for when they needed to be called up, I think was really awesome. And I was drafted into that league and I didn't even know. So I fell asleep. I was recruiting for, I think I was at Purchase College at the time as the assistant coach. Mm-hmm. And I think I was coaching the men's and women's team, and I was recruiting, and I'm a club director as well. So I was out there coaching, I was recruiting, I was doing everything. I ate Wawa because they had a Wawa down there. I was like, yes, this is a win. And I just passed out. And I woke up at like 3:30 in the morning at some abysmal time. And I was like, I don't know where I am. What happened? Like, it must have been a food coma. I don't know. I was just out. And my phone blew up and I had a bunch of text messages. Twitter was going crazy. Instagram was like kind of sort of ish a thing, but it wasn't. I don't know. I'm getting better with social media.
Right. Sure.
And literally I was like, what is this for? And I was like, I got drafted to what? And I'm like half asleep, no coffee. And I'm like, what is happening? And I was like, oh God, I got drafted into the Arena Lacrosse League. Okay. And my mom's like, hello, like this is, and I was like, I was like, this happened. Okay. And I was like, what's the next steps? And then Brad like called me the next day, Brad MacArthur, and was like, okay, so, and you can get this and this and this and the drives, and we got to do all these things, and you can stay with people. And I was like, stay with who? Why? What is happening? I had no idea. And he was like, it's like a Canadian thing. Does this not happen in the US? I was like, no, we don't. No, we don't do that. But it was an awesome experience. It was really cool.
All right, so it brings me over to, because we're rapidly running out of time. Like, we could have 4 shows with everything, but the PBLA, you get drafted to the New England Chowderheads. Let's talk about this, and you make the team. I had a friend of mine actually try to who didn't make the team. Mike Cooper was out there, but yeah, let's talk about the league in itself, the good things, why it didn't work, and the New England Chowderheads in its own right, and you blame for it.
Yeah, it was a really awesome experience to play for them, and to be selected for the team. It was a huge honor. And, looking at it, like when the final roster was announced and when games started, it was pretty much 20 years to the day that Ginny played professionally, which I actually thought was really crazy. And as we kind of talked about before,
Cool.
Kind of sad, but also super cool. With where everything is. And so that opportunity just to be able to continue to play was awesome. I thought that, I thought my career was kind of done, to be honest, playing. And I, in a way, I made peace with that. And I was like, okay, COVID kind of did me in, I would say, with the NLL. I think if COVID didn't happen, I'd probably be at least on a practice squad. And I'm not saying that being like all high and mighty, but I'm around 4, maybe 5, if you want to consider some of the areas drivable. My mom would not, but I would classify it as that. So being able to play and play at the professional level was really huge. And my grandmother passed in September of 2022. And so to have something awesome right before the holidays, and some positive stuff to end out the year was really awesome. So looking at all that, really great experience, being coached by, Marty's awesome, and I think there's something so cool with the box lacrosse community as a whole. It's more, I was never involved with the hockey community, other than being a huge New York Ranger fan.
Right.
But my mom wanted a daughter with teeth. So, hey, I grew up in the 90s, right? So my mom's like, she's not going to have any front teeth. We're done. Like, no, I'm not going to wake up early and drive her to the rink for that. So, but it has more of that, like, family feel where field lacrosse has it, but not to the same extent, I would say. And so just having a lot of really awesome people that are super supportive as a whole is great. And, a lot of the guys I played with and against before. And so having that and them knowing me and it not being like this weird thing of like, oh, there's a chick here. If they didn't know me, like a lot of the guys are like, wait, so there's a woman here? And they go, that's Rachel. Like, how do you not know Rachel?
That's not a woman. That's Rachel.
Yeah. I'm like, okay. So, but, having just that experience, I'm really grateful for. And, it was sad when they put the league on hold while it's under new management, is the way that I like to describe it in a more business sense, right? With me running my own business and everything. So, I think my thing is there are people that are like, oh, I wanted to play. I wanted all these things. At the end of the day, the way I look at things is, it's the same thing with me, shattering glass ceilings, breaking glass ceilings, barriers, whatever you want to call it. If it's great that I do it and I love to play and I love to do all those things, but if I'm not bringing people up with me, if they want to be and helping them through, then, why am I doing it other than because I love to play, right? Which it's not wrong for either thing, but for me, I've always been about inspiring others to achieve their dreams, whatever it may be. And, I think it's so sad that the league didn't make it through a full year with the schedule as it stood when it originally came out, just because, not just for, everybody in the league, right? Coaches, players, everybody employed, right? Obviously it's super sad, but looking at the future too, there's one less opportunity for other people and for people to aspire to for the future. I mean, the NLL is, it's solid. There's obviously any business model, right? There's room to grow everywhere with everything. But it is so hard for Americans to get into the NLL.
Yeah.
So being able to have another opportunity is huge. And also, I mean, the Arena Lacrosse League, I was in it, is phenomenal. But how doable is it for people that have jobs, around by me? Now I'm like, I'm like, there's lacrosse, I will travel, but for not everybody can do that. And so it was more of an opportunity for other people, that exhausted other options, or the other options maybe didn't work, or, insert whatever you want to put there.
Sure.
But it's just another opportunity lost, is the way that I look at it. And I just wish lacrosse as a whole, that we could figure out, whether it's field or box, right, these leagues to be sustaining for the long term, so that there's opportunities for men and for women, right? Or however you identify, like whatever it is for the future. And I think that's something that we have to fix as a community as a whole, or we're going to keep running into these issues where, every few months or every few years, a league comes around and then goes. And it's the semi-pro stuff is the same way too. Mm-hmm. So I just wish that there was more stability, I think, at the end of the day. So, and I look at it as well from a standpoint of, one of those games that got postponed, I was supposed to be in and suit up and play. And, just having that opportunity, not just for myself, I mean, I would have loved it. And, and to be able to play and put that jersey on, no doubt. But the opportunity for a bunch of, young women or kids or whoever to be able to be like, hey, Rachel can do that. And I can too. And that's so awesome. I think it's a sad moment a little bit too. And I don't want it just to be like, oh yeah, a woman played it. I want it because I've earned it and I deserve it. I don't want there to be a handout, because my thing is, I want it to be real. I don't want it to be a media thing. And I know the media will come, and that's okay. I talked to my agent about that, and he's like, it's going to come. And I was like, that's okay. But I don't want it to be, oh, let's get her here because it's good PR. Right. And, that can come and that can be great, but I want it to be real and true. And, I found out the other day that I'm the only woman playing professional men's, anything really. I'm the only woman playing in a professional league or team or anything currently. There's people that have done it in any sport, which is really, really cool. So just kind of looking at those things, it's just sad that how can we have more stability for the future?
Sure.
And again, not just for me, but for everybody too. So.
Right. Just before we end, I want to make sure that we mention your company, RV Lacrosse, and just what it is and how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah. So I run my own business doing camps, clinics, trainings, whatever you want to call them, lessons. And it's called RV Lacrosse LLC. So rvlacrosse.com. Has everything on it. And I do a bunch of different things. I also do photography as well. So I kind of siphoned off. I used to put everything all on one Instagram, and my friend's like, no, you got to do 3 separate. Sorry. And I was like, God, this is a pain. Like managing one Instagram is enough. I was like 3. So RV Rachel Vallarelli Photography and Media is my like more creative arm and stuff like that. So landscapes, portraiture, sports photography, stuff like that. So those are my 2.
It's beautiful. It's just some fantastic photography in there.
Thank you.
But so the clinics itself, are they just in your area, or does it travel? Or
so gonna implement more traveling. When I was a college coach for the past 8 years, obviously it was a little bit hard to really be able to make everything work and stuff. So something had to give. And I decided, after my grandmother passed in September, I was like, I'm going to make an executive decision to just focus on growing youth lacrosse and really making lacrosse a sport for all, truly. Because right now it's not. So being able to go and do that and travel and everything, that's on the works for 23, 24. I was a crazy person today, and I was kind of figuring everything out for 2023 to 2024. So I'm a little slightly psychotic, I think, in that regard, but I'm a very big planner. So.
Right. Well, I just want to take the time to thank you for taking your time with us. It's been fantastic. And this hour is just, it's flown by like this. And literally, like I said, we could
I talk too much too. I'm Italian. I'm lucky the hand stayed like under the camera. I've learned to position it in a good spot. So
But anyways, all the best, and I'm looking forward to watching you with the PBLA's return, and any of the other box leagues that you were in, because I think it's fantastic. And this he, him, them, she, I think that should all be eliminated because it should be on merit. And you have a long list of lineage, and I wish you all the best.
thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, Rachel, it was our pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk lacrosse and how people get involved and basically be a passenger on the adventure that is a career of lacrosse. Because in lacrosse, it seems more than any other sport, it's a career once you start. And congratulations on yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, she's Rachel Vallarelli. Our co-host is Gary Groob. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thanks for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk. Seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For lacrosse talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to check out Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Thanks, everybody.